Let's not waste time with an introduction. We both know why you're here. This is Sandeep from Rev Atlas. Let's dive right in. The OnePlus 60 has a 16 megapixel f1.7 Sony IMX519 sensor with 1.22 micron pixel size and OIS, while the secondary unit is a Sony IMX376K with 20 megapixels of resolution, 1 micron pixel size and a similar f1.7 aperture. The Poco F1 has a 12 megapixel Sony IMX363 sensor with f1.9 aperture, 1.4 micron pixel size, coupled with a 5 megapixel f2 1.12 micron depth sensor. OnePlus 60 has faster focus and a faster shutter speed compared to the Poco F1. In terms of color reproduction, the 60 has cooler tones while the F1 is warmer. The Poco F1 shots have a flatter profile while there's more contrast on the 60 shots. Poco F1 has good sharpness, but at first glance it seems like the 60 has more until you pixel peep. While it is sharp, it's actually over sharpened and you can see the loss of detail is evident especially in the leaves and you get a watercolor sort of effect. So it's just an apparent sharpness, and if you look at true detail resolved and sharpness, F1 is the better pick. Dynamic range is similar too, but the OnePlus 60 has a more aggressive HDR mode. Both phones do add some clarity apart from improving the dynamic range, but OnePlus adds just a bit more. Coming to the portrait mode, they're both quite similar when it comes to edge detection and blurring algorithm. Fairly good but not great. But the main difference is in terms of dynamic range in portrait photos, and that is represented well in these two shots. You see blown out highlights on the Poco F1 shot, but you can see the blue sky on the OnePlus 60, albeit blurred out. It looks more pleasing and seems like OnePlus actually captures an HDR photo before applying the blur, as it's tough to get such a big difference in terms of dynamic range otherwise. The Poco F1 is better at sharpness and detail, as the blurring on the 60 sometimes bleeds onto the object or subject and overall has a softness to it. Low light photography wise, OnePlus 60 is better. The images have better contrast and details. There's noise on both the phones, but the images look better on the 60, and the 60 also has a party trick up its sleeve in the form of Nightscape, which is a new dedicated night mode that aims to produce better photos, and it does deliver. This only increases the gap between the 60 and Poco F1 at night. The front camera is a 16 megapixel f2 sensor with 1 micron pixel size on the OnePlus 60, while there's a 20 megapixel f2 sensor with 0.9 micron pixel size on the Poco F1. In terms of front camera performance, both the smartphones are pretty close despite what the resolution might suggest. Yes, the Poco F1 does produce larger images in terms of resolution and file sizes, but the amount of detail resolved is pretty similar. Actually, the details are a little bit better on the Poco F1, but the slower shutter speed does result in some subject blurring or shakes, and that takes a bit away from the sharpness. OnePlus 60 on the other hand has some weird noise reduction filters, sort of like a luminance mask that drowns out some of the details. Not a major difference still, unless you pixel peep. Dynamic range is very similar too, but the colors are a tad bit warmer on the Poco F1 while they're cooler on the OnePlus 60. HDR mode tells a similar story, as both the phones have okayish dynamic range. HDR mode helps especially in preventing highlights from getting blown out, and the only major difference is in terms of contrast, where the OnePlus has more while the Poco photos feel more flat. The portrait mode is a tough one because they have different ways of processing. The blurring is more subtle and laid back on the OnePlus, which allows you to kind of tell what was there in the first place. The F1 has a stronger blur and even has bokeh balls, which appeal more to some. I prefer OnePlus in that respect, but when it comes to edge detection, the Poco F1 does better. Your facial features are better defined and so is the blur portion. OnePlus isn't bad, but you kind of see some areas where it thinks of blurring something and then kind of decides not to. There's little to go in favor of the Poco F1 when it comes to videos. OnePlus has been acing the video game for a while now, and the 60 is no different. It supports 1080p and 4K 30fps modes with EIS and 4K 60fps mode without EIS. F1 can do 4K 30fps without EIS and 1080p 30fps with EIS. And unlike the OnePlus 60, there is no option at all for 1080p 60. Videos look better, have higher bitrates and lesser focus issues on the OnePlus 60 compared to the Poco F1. One advantage the F1 has is the optional H.265 encoding for videos, but that really isn't a deal breaker. Front-facing camera on the 60 also supports EIS at 1080p 30fps, while the Poco F1 doesn't support EIS at the same resolution. Here too, OnePlus videos are better.
Hey guys, it's Sandeep from Rev Atlas, and since it's Diwali right now, and it's kind of like the festival of lights, and it's most alive or active at night, where you have all these lights, etc. I thought it's probably a good thing to check out how the video quality is and compare the OnePlus 60 and the Poco F1 at night, and even let me know how the overall sharpness is, the dynamic range, how well it's picking up my voice in this particular scenario, and also how good the stabilization is compared to each other. Hey guys, it's Sandeep from Revetless, and considering that it's actually Diwali and it's a festival of lights and stuff, and it's kind of more alive when it's at night, I thought why not do this comparison between the OnePlus 60 and Poco F1 at night, where you can see all these beautiful lights and stuff, and test even the low light performance in terms of video for both these smartphones. So let me know what you guys think about the overall sharpness, the dynamic range, how well is picking up my voice in this particular scenario, and how the video stacks against each other in terms of stabilization as well.
Lastly, OnePlus also has a lead when it comes to slow motion, as it supports 720p at 480 fps, while the F1 and 60 both can do 1080p at 240 fps. I'm sure you guys must be thinking, why do our devices look so different and how can I make my phone look like that? Well, that's because we have got skins on them courtesy of Capes India, and you can get a variety of different skins for the OnePlus 60, Poco F1 and just about any popular smartphone and more really. All you have to do is visit capesindia.com or visit the link in description below and use our promo code REVATLES to get 10% off. They're easy to apply, look really cool and help prevent your device from slipping or getting scratched. At the end is a clear winner when it comes to the videos, when the OnePlus 6 has a clear lead. In terms of photo, is not so easy. You have better dynamic range in portrait mode or otherwise, as well as better low light performance and contrast on the 60, while the Poco F1 gives you better details, sharpness and edge detection, as well as blurring in portrait mode. Whichever one you pick, the difference might not really make a drastic change to your end game unless videos are a big chunk of that. Then again, you would also need to consider the price difference between the two and see whether that difference in price is justified by what the phone offers. We're planning to do a separate video with Gcam mod on both the devices, as well as a night side comparison if we manage to get it to work on both. Let us know in the comment section below if you want to see that as well. Thanks for watching this video. See you again in the next one.